The satin of my dress felt like a lead blanket, heavy and suffocating, even though the air conditioning in the bridal suite was blasting. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip them together, knuckles white, just to stop the tremor. I kept picturing her face, her eyes, Eleanor's eyes, wide and unblinking as she stood there, right in front of the string quartet, in the middle of our reception, holding that microphone like she was about to announce the winning lottery numbers. Instead of that, the words themselves were a blur now, a ringing in my ears that blocked out everything else, but the feeling of everyone's stunned silence, the way the music just stopped, that was etched into my brain. David had pulled me away so fast, practically dragging me through the shocked faces, out of the ballroom, and up to this little sanctuary. He's usually so calm, so measured, but his jaw was tight, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. He kept trying to talk, saying my name, asking if I was okay, but I couldn't process it. My mind just went blank, like someone had hit the mute button on the world. All I could think about was the way people had looked at me. 100 pairs of eyes, not just surprised, but judging, like I was on trial. We've been together for 5 years, David and I. Engaged for 1. I'm 31, he's 32. This day, this whole stupid, beautiful, expensive day, was supposed to be the start of everything. We'd found out in April that we were expecting, and even though it moved our wedding plans up a bit, it just felt right. We were so excited. It was a little girl. We had names picked out, a nursery already mostly painted a soft lavender. This baby, our baby, was supposed to be a joyous part of our celebration, a little secret we'd share with just our closest family during the toasts, before announcing it properly to everyone else. Instead, Eleanor, she just ripped it all open, publicly, cruelly. I looked down at my stomach, just barely showing beneath the fitted lace bodice, a little bump that was still mostly hidden, but undeniably there. 12 weeks, a tiny, perfect little human. And Eleanor had stood there, in front of all our friends and family, and told them I was faking it, faking the pregnancy. As if I'd stuff a pillow under my dress for attention. For what? To trick David into marrying me? The sheer audacity, the malice of it. It just hollowed me out. David sat next to me on the plush sofa, his arm around my shoulders, his hand rubbing my arm gently. He didn't say anything more for a long moment, just held me. I could feel his anger, simmering just beneath the surface, but for my sake, he was holding it in. I know he was trying to be strong for me, but I also knew what this meant. It wasn't just a terrible wedding anecdote we'd laugh about someday. This was something else entirely. Something fundamentally broken, not just between Eleanor and me, but something that might forever taint the happiest day of our lives. The silence stretched, heavy and thick, punctuated only by the thrumming of the air conditioning and the frantic beating of my own heart. I could feel tears pricking at my eyes, but they wouldn't fall. It was like I was too stunned, too emotionally exhausted to even cry. Just numb. It's funny the things you remember when your world gets turned upside down. Like how David and I met. It was almost exactly 5 years ago, late August, at a friend's barbecue out in Glendale. I was still kinda reeling from a breakup, just showing up for moral support for my friend, Chloe, who was hosting. He was there with his sister, Rebecca. Not Eleanor, obviously. Rebecca is really sweet. An accountant like David, actually. Just a few years older. I remember thinking he looked really put together, even in a t-shirt and shorts. Like he ironed his casual clothes. He had this calm, quiet way about him. While everyone else was yelling over the grill and the music, he was just sitting on the patio, totally absorbed in a book. I ended up teasing him about it, something dumb like, "Don't you know you're at a party?" He just looked up, gave me this really charming, slightly shy smile and said, "I am. Just multitasking." We ended up talking for hours that day, about books, about our jobs. I'm a graphic designer for a marketing firm downtown, about everything and nothing. It just clicked. Within a month, we were inseparable. Our early days were just easy, comfortable. We had this routine where every Saturday morning, we'd hit up the farmer's market in Silver Lake, grab coffee, and then spend the afternoon cooking something elaborate. He'd pick the recipe, I'd find the right wine to go with it. Sometimes we'd just curl up on the couch, watching terrible sci-fi movies and making fun of them. He moved into my apartment in Los Feliz about a year and a half in, which was a big step for both of us. Neither of us had ever cohabitated with a partner before. It felt natural, though. We just fit. Eleanor came into the picture pretty early, of course, being his mom. I met her a few months after David and I started dating. First impression? Intense. She was meticulously dressed, even for a casual Sunday lunch at her house in Pasadena. Everything was perfect, from her hair to the way she set the table. She smiled a lot, but it never quite reached her eyes, if that makes sense. She asked a lot of questions about me, about my background, my family, my job, almost like an interview. David just brushed it off. "Oh, that's just Mom, she's always curious." I figured, okay, a little overbearing, but she loves her son, right? The first real red flag I think I ignored was maybe a year into our relationship. We were at a family dinner, and I mentioned I was thinking about going freelance, taking on some bigger projects outside my main job. It was something David and I had talked about a lot, and he was really supportive. Eleanor just stopped chewing her steak, put her fork down perfectly straight, and said, "Oh, honey, I don't think that's a good idea. David needs stability. You need a steady income, health insurance. Plus, David just got that promotion. He's going to be so busy. He won't have time to worry about your artistic endeavors." I remember feeling this cold knot in my stomach. David just kind of cleared his throat and changed the subject. Later, he apologized for her, said she just worries, especially about finances. He said she'd had a tough time after his dad passed when David was young, so she was always a little protective. I wanted to believe him. I really did. There were other things, too. Small comments, here and there, about my fashion choices. "That's a bold color, isn't it?" Or my cooking. "Oh, I usually add a little more thyme to this recipe. It just brightens it up." Always with a smile, always under the guise of helpful advice. I tried to laugh it off, or just ignore it. David would sometimes catch my eye and give a little sympathetic shrug. He'd try to smooth things over, tell me later, "Don't mind her, you know how she is." I told myself it was just a mother-in-law thing. A little territorial, maybe. A little old-fashioned, nothing malicious. She loved David, and David loved me, so it would all work out. I just needed to be patient, earn her over. I kept thinking, she'll come around. I really misread the situation, didn't I? She never did. Not really. The little comments started getting less little, more pointed, after David proposed in October. We were at this gorgeous overlook in Malibu, just after sunset. He'd completely surprised me, down on one knee with a ring he'd had designed himself. It was perfect. We called our families right after, and my mom was over the moon, practically screaming with joy. Eleanor. Well, she was polite. "That's lovely, David." "And you, Penelope." Very exciting news. No actual warmth in her voice, just that perfectly modulated, even tone. That should have been my first real clue, I guess. The first major incident really happened a few weeks later. We were planning the wedding, just starting to look at venues. We wanted something smallish, maybe 80 to 100 people, kind of rustic chic, maybe a vineyard out in Temecula. I'd made a Pinterest board, all the usual stuff. David was actually really into it, which was sweet. Eleanor insisted we come over for dinner to discuss logistics. As soon as we sat down, she produced this massive 3-ring binder. "I've taken the liberty of putting together some initial thoughts," she announced, pushing it across the table. Inside were printouts of grand ballrooms, caterers with black tie menus, and a guest list of about 250 people. almost all from her side of the family and David's dad's old business contacts. My jaw must have dropped. "Eleanor," David started, trying to be gentle. "We talked about this. We want something intimate." She just smiled that tight smile. "Nonsense, darling. This is a celebration, and it reflects on us. David, you're an associate at Sterling and Hayes now. You can't have some barn wedding. It's just not appropriate." I tried to interject, but we really love the idea of something more casual, outdoors. She cut me off, not even looking at me. "Penelope, dear, I understand you have certain tastes, but this is David's family legacy we're talking about. A wedding is a statement." David just kind of shrunk. He looked at me, then at her, and then back down at his plate. He muttered something about maybe we could compromise, but she just steamrolled him. Later, he told me he was trying to pick his battles, that his mom could be a force of nature. I got it to an extent, but it was our wedding, not hers. We ended up settling on a slightly larger, slightly more traditional venue in Santa Barbara. Still not what I really wanted, but a compromise that was definitely more her style. My mom, when I told her, just sighed. "You're going to have to stand up for yourselves, honey. You and David." The tension really ratcheted up when we started talking about the guest list. She kept adding people neither David nor I had ever met. "Aunt Carol's second cousin, or Mr. Henderson from your father's old firm." Our original list of 90 ballooned to almost 180. The budget was spiraling. I brought it up to David one night, almost in tears. "David, this is insane. We can't afford this, and honestly, I don't want a wedding full of strangers." He ran his hand through his hair. I know. It's a lot. She means well. She wants everyone to celebrate us. She wants to show off," I blurted out, then immediately felt bad. But it was true. "She barely talks to me, David. She just criticizes or dictates. This isn't about celebrating us, it's about her vision of what her son's wedding should be." He looked genuinely conflicted. "I'll talk to her, I promise. Maybe we can cut some of the distant relatives. Just be patient with her, Pen. She's like that with everyone." That was the thing, he always made excuses, and I always, foolishly, believed them. I told myself I was being too sensitive, that I needed to understand her background, her loss. I wanted to be a good daughter-in-law. Incident number 2. The dress. I'd found my dream dress at a little boutique in Beverly Hills, a beautiful A-line lace gown, simple but elegant. I took my mom and Chloe with me. We FaceTimed David's sister, Rebecca, so she could see. Everyone loved it. I felt beautiful in it. Eleanor, however, had to have her own say. We went to her house for Sunday dinner, and I showed her photos on my phone. She looked at them for a long moment, then just shook her head. "It's nice, Penelope. But David deserves something more. Something with a bit more presence. Something classic. This looks a little youthful." "Youthful?" I repeated, my voice tight. "Eleanor, I'm 31. "Exactly," she said, as if that explained everything. "You need something that commands respect, something that says matron of the house, not runaway bride." She then proceeded to pull out a catalog from a high-end bridal store I couldn't even dream of affording, pointing to a huge ball gown-style dress with layers of tulle and crystals. "Something like this. It would suit you much better." David, again, just sat there. He looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Later, he tried to reassure me. "Your dress is beautiful, Pen. Don't listen to her. She just has very specific tastes." But the seed of doubt was planted. Every time I looked at my dress after that, I wondered if I truly looked youthful, in a bad way. It chipped away at my confidence, piece by piece. The third big incident came right after we found out I was pregnant in April. We were over the moon, absolutely thrilled. It was such a surprise, but a wonderful one. We decided to keep it quiet for the first trimester, just telling immediate family. David called Eleanor, and I was on speaker. He told her the news, his voice full of joy. There was a pause. A long, dead silent pause. Then Eleanor's voice, perfectly calm. Well, that's certainly a development. You're sure, David? I mean, are you absolutely certain of the paternity? My heart stopped. I actually gasped. David, bless him, finally snapped. Mom! What kind of a thing is that to say? Of course I'm sure. What is wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with me, David, she replied, her voice icy. I'm just asking the sensible questions. You two aren't even married yet. And Penelope? Well, she's always seemed a bit flighty. I just wouldn't want you to be taken advantage of. I ripped the phone out of David's hand. Eleanor, how dare you? Is that what you think of me? That I would lie about something like this? I think, she said, cutting me off, that you're very good at getting what you want, Penelope. And now you're getting David to rush into a marriage. Very convenient timing, isn't it? I couldn't even speak. I just handed the phone back to David, who was already yelling into it. He ended up hanging up on her. He was furious. I am so sorry, Pen. I can't believe she said that. She's completely out of line. He was genuinely upset, hugging me tight, promising to talk to her, to set boundaries. We actually had a huge fight with her over the phone a few days later. David telling her in no uncertain terms that her comments were unacceptable. She tried to backtrack, saying she was just concerned for him, that she loved him. I thought, this is it. This is where he finally draws a line. But even after that fight, she still managed to twist it. She sent me a text a few days later. Just remember, Penelope, a mother always knows best about her son, and I have a very strong intuition. I showed it to David and he just shook his head, looking exhausted. She's just a lot, Pen. Ignore her. But how could I ignore that? How could I ignore the insinuation that I was some kind of schemer, using our baby to trap her son? It was vile, and it just kept festering. The wedding plans continued, but underneath all the frantic activity, this toxic undercurrent was building, slowly, inexorably, towards what happened today. I guess I just kept hoping things would get better, that she'd accept me, that she'd see how much David loved me, how much we loved each other. I was so wrong. The bridal suite was quiet, too quiet. The soft hum of the air conditioning unit was the only sound breaking the silence between David and me. I could still hear the faint, muffled sound of the string quartet from downstairs, starting up again, tentatively, like they were testing the waters after a shock. It felt surreal, like this wasn't happening to me. Not really. This couldn't be my wedding day. David finally broke the quiet, his voice low, almost a whisper. Pen, are you okay? What did she say? He'd pulled me away so quickly. He hadn't actually heard the exact words, just the stunned silence, and the way everyone reacted. He'd seen Eleanor with the microphone, seen my face crumble, and just acted. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like it was full of sand. I swallowed hard. She said, she told everyone that I was faking it. The pregnancy. The words came out choked, ragged. That it was all a lie. A trick to get you to marry me. David's eyes went wide. He looked utterly horrified, like he'd been punched in the gut. His face went pale, then a furious red. He stood up abruptly, pacing the small room. What? Number. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't. She implied things to me, yes, but to stand up in front of everyone, our guests, and say, that's insane. That's a whole other level. I just watched him, numb. He was so upset, so genuinely shocked. and part of me felt a flicker of relief that he wasn't dismissing it. But another part, the cold, cynical part that had been growing, wondered if he really understood the depth of the malice. He never seemed to truly grasp it. He always softened her actions, explained them away. "She did, David," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "She absolutely did." I saw their faces. Everyone heard her. All our friends, your colleagues, my family, they all heard. He stopped pacing, running his hands through his hair. "I need to go down there. I need to fix this." "Fix this?" I laughed, a short, humorless sound. "How do you fix this, David? How do you unsay something like that? How do you unshame me in front of everyone?" He came and sat back beside me, pulling me into a hug. I leaned into him, burying my face in his shoulder. His suit jacket smelled faintly of his cologne, the one I bought him last Christmas. Everything about this day was supposed to be perfect, familiar, safe. Now it felt completely alien. "I don't know, Pen. I honestly don't know," he admitted, his voice cracking. "But I'm not letting her get away with this. Not this time." We sat there for a few more minutes, the muffled music playing downstairs, the clinking of glasses that I could just barely imagine. I pictured my mom, her face probably white with shock, Chloe probably comforting her. Rebecca, David's sister, she must be mortified. Rebecca actually reached out to me, just a couple of hours before the ceremony, sending me a text saying, "So excited for you guys, Pen. This is going to be amazing. Can't wait to be an auntie." I remembered that text and felt a fresh wave of grief. "We have to go down there, David," I finally said, pulling away from him. My voice felt a little stronger now. "We can't just hide up here. Everyone's probably talking, speculating." "No, Pen. We don't have to do anything," he insisted. "Not yet. I want to know what the hell she was thinking. I'm going to find her. You stay here. I'll be right back." He stood up, his jaw set, and walked towards the door. But before he could open it, there was a tentative knock. It was Chloe, my maid of honor, looking pale and worried. Behind her, my mom, her eyes red-rimmed. "Penelope, honey," my mom started, her voice trembling. "Oh, my poor girl." She rushed over, pulling me into a tight hug. Chloe just shook her head, looking at David. "David, your mom is still out there. She's telling people that Penelope made you postpone your honeymoon for a fake doctor's appointment, for her checkup." My breath hitched. The lie was spreading. She wasn't just saying I was faking it. She was actively weaving a narrative, selling it. The room felt suddenly too small, too hot, even with the AC blasting. A wave of nausea hit me, hard. I clutched my stomach, my real, pregnant stomach, feeling a wave of pure, visceral rage. This wasn't just an attack on me. It was an attack on our baby, on everything sacred. This was not something that could be fixed. This was a complete and utter breach. David looked from Chloe to my mom, then back to me, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. She's still doing it?" "She's convinced herself, David," Chloe said, her voice firm. "And she's trying to convince everyone else. You need to do something. Now." The weight of the satin dress, the suffocating feeling, it was all back. I felt like I was going to throw up. My vision blurred for a second. This was it, the absolute, undeniable, uncrossable line. I looked at David, really looked at him, and for the first time, I wondered if he could truly stand up to her, not just for a moment of anger, but permanently. Could he really protect me from this? My heart ached with a terrible, dawning realization. This wasn't just about Eleanor anymore. This was about us. The rest of the wedding day was a blur of chaos and humiliation. David did go down, finally. He went directly to Eleanor, in front of everyone, and apparently had a screaming match that could be heard through the entire ballroom. My mom and Chloe told me later he dragged her, literally dragged her, out of the venue. She was still apparently yelling things. Something about, "My son deserves better than a liar." The whole thing was just awful. The wedding was called off, of course, not just postponed. Called off. We spent the rest of the evening, or what was left of it, with my family, trying to process. David was apologetic, furious, heartbroken all at once. He kept saying, "I should have seen this, Pen. I should have done something sooner." The practical fallout hit almost immediately. The venue, the caterers, the florist. We lost almost all our deposits. Tens of thousands of dollars, just gone. Money we couldn't really afford to lose, especially with a baby on the way. David had put a lot of his savings into it, and I had too. That was the first hurdle. A huge financial hit that just deepened the gut-wrenching feeling of loss. We were supposed to be starting our lives together, financially stable, looking forward. Now we were just drowning in debt and regret. Socially, it was a mess. My friends were outraged, supportive, and kind. Chloe helped me pack up the bridal suite, the uneaten cake, the favors. She was my rock. Rebecca, David's sister, called me crying the next day, apologizing for her mom, saying she was utterly ashamed. She said Eleanor had gone completely off the rails, started believing her own crazy stories. But David's other family members, some of them, his aunts and uncles, they called him, saying he was being disrespectful to his mother, that Penelope clearly provoked her. Can you believe that? Blaming me. The gaslighting was just pervasive. My work colleagues heard through the grapevine, of course. My boss, a really understanding woman named Vivian, just told me to take as much time as I needed. She even suggested I consider legal action for defamation, but I just couldn't even think about that yet. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. One minute I was shaking with anger, wanting to scream at Eleanor, to make her pay. The next, I was curled up in a ball, just crying for what we'd lost. Not just the wedding, but the innocence of our future. The trust. I felt so much sadness, a profound grief for the dream of our perfect life together. Then fear would creep in. Fear for our baby, for our future. How could we raise a child with this kind of toxicity hanging over us? David was completely on my side, unequivocally. He was disgusted by his mother's actions. He kept apologizing over and over for not protecting me, for not seeing it for what it was. He tried to contact his mother once or twice to demand an apology, but she just doubled down, saying I was the one who owed her an apology for breaking up her family. The recovery attempts have been slow. David immediately insisted we get into couples counseling. I agreed cautiously. We've had a few sessions already. It's helping us talk through what happened, about his past issues with his mom, how he always minimized her behavior. He's finally seeing it for what it is, not just her being a lot, but emotional abuse. He's decided to cut contact with her completely. It's a huge step for him, one I honestly never thought he'd take. He's grieving that, I know, but he says he has to choose. He chose me and our baby. An unexpected discovery came a few days later when Rebecca called again. She told me Eleanor had actually gone to our officiant, Pastor Michael, a week before the wedding, trying to get him to refuse to marry us, saying I was a known liar. Pastor Michael, bless his heart, had called David, who thought it was just his mom being dramatic and told the pastor to ignore her. He swore he didn't realize how truly unhinged she'd become. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment outburst. This was premeditated. The knowledge that she had planned this, that she had been trying to sabotage us for weeks, maybe months, it just solidified everything. The relief that we didn't marry under those circumstances, that we didn't legally tie ourselves together with that hanging over us, was immense. But the pain of it, the betrayal, remains. It's been almost 3 months since the non-wedding. Life is different now. David and I aren't married, obviously, but we're more solid than ever, in a weird, raw way. We actually decided to take a small road trip, just us, to Joshua Tree a few weeks ago. No fancy dresses, no guests, just the desert and each other. We stood under the stars and exchanged private vows, just two of us. It wasn't legal, but it felt more real than any big ceremony could have. We still plan to get legally married, just at the courthouse, sometime after the baby arrives. Maybe with Chloe and Rebecca as witnesses. We're still in counseling. David is doing a lot of hard work unpacking his relationship with his mother, the way she controlled him, the guilt she used. It's tough to watch, but I'm incredibly proud of him. He's putting up real boundaries, and that's something he never did before. We've managed to recoup some of the wedding costs. Not much, but enough to breathe a little easier. My freelance work is picking up, which is a blessing, and David's company actually gave him a small bonus for a project he nailed. Slowly, inch by inch, we're rebuilding. I've learned a lot through all this. I learned that ignoring red flags doesn't make them go away. It just lets them fester. I learned that loving someone means protecting them, even from your own family. And I learned that sometimes, the hardest truths are the most freeing. I'm not a bad person for wanting to be respected, for expecting basic human decency. I'm not flighty or a schemer. I'm a woman who loves her partner and is bringing a child into the world. This whole thing has definitely changed our future plans. The dream of a big family gathering for every holiday, that's gone. David knows that. Our daughter, when she arrives in January, won't have a paternal grandmother in her life, at least not one that's present. That hurts. It really does. I wanted a big, messy, loving family for her. But she'll have my amazing parents, a wonderful aunt in Rebecca, and a dad who has finally found his backbone. I'm sharing this because it's still so raw. It's still hard, and sometimes just putting it out there, into the void, helps. It helps to know there are people out there who get it, who understand how deeply family dynamics can wound. To those who've read this far, thank you. Thank you for listening. I guess I'm still figuring out how to heal, how to move past the public shaming and build a happy life. How do you ever truly forget something like that? And will our daughter ever really understand why her grandmother isn't around? These are the questions that keep me up at night.